Hi and welcome. I'm Tini, and the goal of this channel is to bring you practical tips and strategies to enrich your life experience. And I'm here with Loretta Ferrucci, who helps women age with optimal health and high vitality. And today we're going to give you a few practical tips on how to optimize your health and vitality. So thank you, Loretta, for accepting my invitation and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here.
And please tell us how you got started with what you do. I know that you do some cool stuff like uncovering the root causes of health conditions, looking at the body's signs and symptoms. So tell us how did you get started with this and why?
Sure. Well, I sort of fell into my career. I was going to study law and I was enrolled in the university and about to go and be a lawyer. And I'd been seeing a chiropractor at the time. And he said to me, Rita, why are you going to waste your time with the law? Why don't you go and become a chiropractor? So I was like, really? I've got to go to America. And he went, no. They're starting a course in South Africa. So it was already late in the year. He said, don't worry, I'll get you an interview. Anyway, I was accepted and I went to study chiropractic. But the homeopathy and chiropractic course were running concurrently. So the first 2 years were exactly the same. And about halfway through my second year, I realized, no, you know what? Backs and necks and musculoskeletal problems and rugby players and sports injuries, not really my bag. So I changed and I became a homeopath. So I went into private practice straight after university and immediately realized that I don't know enough. I've got these people who are sick and I don't actually know what to do. Well, I had an idea, but like I didn't. I was 24 years old. The first thing people were saying were like, but you're so young. We weren't expecting anyone so young. So what can I do about that? So I started learning as many alternative therapies as I could. But I essentially ran my private practice for 25 years. That's what I did. It's been my career my whole life. And a lot of my emphasis in my practice was obviously on lifestyle management, nutrition, movement, regulating stress, sleeping well, not so much about medication, but more about how people need to improve their lives. And I also studied a lot of energy medicine techniques. And then I really got involved in how our unconscious or our subconscious affects our physiology. And it's at that point that I actually started teaching workshops. So I realized in my practice that even if I changed their diets and even if people were quite good about that, and even if they took the remedies, sometimes they still didn't get better because there was some underlying mind stuff or energetic stuff that needed addressing. And so as my practice sort of advanced and as I aged, I became more proficient at these various modalities and sort of put them together in a form that is uniquely mine. And then I closed my practice at the end of last year. I stopped being a homeopath in full-time practice and I went online into the health and wellness coaching line. And so essentially I've combined everything that I've gained over the 25 years of experience with my work as a homeopath in a sort of a medical field, understanding from a diagnostic point of view, even though I don't treat patients that way. I actually see clients now, and mostly focusing on what is the cause behind the cause. Once you've changed your diet and you're doing the exercise and you're regulating your sleep and you're still not living optimally, what is really going on underneath all of that? So that's really where my focus and my primary interest is.
I love it. I mean, you've got all this experience and expertise, and I loved how it evolved from one thing that led to another and so on. Yeah. So if someone wanted to optimize their health and vitality, what are your best three practical tips or strategies?
Well, okay, so I would start with the first thing we have to do is manage our energy. And I'm not talking about like how much energy do you have to get through the day. I am talking about that, but I'm talking about literally how do you manage your energy body. So your energy body is like the blueprint. So when you build a house, you have a blueprint, you have a plan, right? And then the building ends up looking like the plan. So in our energy body, we have a blueprint, and that determines what our health is like mentally, emotionally, physically. And we can work on that blueprint. So you can work on the blueprint, for example, by doing yoga. That's a blueprint kind of therapy. You can do qigong, you can do tai chi, you can do meditation, you can do reiki, you can do all sorts of energy techniques. The one that I find works best for me and is most effective for me, please, I'm not saying it's better than all the others, is a Japanese healing art called Jinshin Jitsu. And Jinshin Jitsu has a very simple technique that I'm going to show you called the Jinshin Jitsu Big Hug. So when you do the Jinshin Jitsu Big Hug, you place your thumb on your chest, opposite, a hand on the opposite side, and you basically cross your arms like this. So you got your thumbs on your chest and you got your fingers underneath your armpits. And your fingers will be lying here on the side of your lat. And that is an energy center that essentially connects you to the blueprint. You're going to have to take my word for it.
Okay, so
And
kind of like this.
yeah, so you've just comfortably with your arms crossed, you sit with your feet on the floor. You can do this lying down as well. Obviously, try and keep your spine straight. And then just start focusing on your breathing. Don't change your breathing. Don't try and breathe deeply. And start counting cycles of inhalation and exhalation. And the goal is to do 36 in and out breaths. Okay, so in and out is one. So if you do 36 of those, Mary Burmeister, who was an American-Japanese woman who studied Jinshin-jutsu with the master of Jinshin-jutsu in Japan and brought it to the West, she said 36 aware and conscious breaths are all we need for perfect health, wealth, and happiness. So it sounds really simple, right? It's 36 breaths, but if your mind wanders, if you get lost, if you can't remember which number you're on, you've got to start at number 1. So it's easier in the beginning, right? It's easier in the beginning if you just go for 9. So if you can do 9, once you get comfortable with 9, then you go for 18. And if you can do 18, you go for 27, and eventually you'll be able to go for 36. And what this does is it literally brings your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight, you know, the one that's activated when you're stressed, and your parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest and restore, it brings those two parts into harmony. And when they're in harmony, your immune system is balanced, your emotions become balanced, your energy becomes balanced. And so yes, 5 minutes later, they might be imbalanced again. But if you do it consistently, a couple of times a day, it takes about 5 minutes. A couple of times a day, you really start getting a handle on managing your energy. So that's my first tip. Sorry, that was a bit long, but I had to just demonstrate it for you.
No, but I loved it because it's practical and anyone can do it. I mean, we can do it right now. But being aware of the breath and not listening to anything else or concentrating.
So you can have thoughts. Listen, you can have thoughts. We all do, right? As long as they don't distract you from where you are in the counting. So the counting is a way to keep your mind focused. And if you have thoughts, that's okay. It's just when you find yourself heading off, you know, now you're thinking about your next meeting and you can't remember what number you are on the breath. That's when you got to start again. So that's my first tip. If I could do nothing else, if I knew nothing else, if I forgot everything else that I've ever learned, that's the one that I would keep. The second one is to feel our feelings fully and not try and distract ourselves, because we distract, we suppress, and we try and rationalize our emotions away. Because when we're little, you know, when you're upset, when a baby's upset or a child's upset, the parents are trying to soothe it. And the message we get is it's not okay to be displaying those negative emotions. And those feelings are like energy. They're like waves. They just want to be felt. They don't want to be fixed. So when we rationalize why, you know, if I'm sad and I'm like, yes, I'm sad because that's an attempt not to feel it. So a really easy way to do this is, again, you can start by doing the breaths, actually, because it will get you into a sort of a quiet state. And then to just ask yourself, where in your body do you feel it? Let's just say you're anxious. Like, where in your body is it? Because it will be somewhere. So, you know, some people have it in their chest or in their belly, and then try and describe it. Like, what does it look like? Make it up, all right? Because you don't know what it looks like. Does it have a shape? Does it have a color? Does it have a smell? Does it have a texture? And that doesn't matter. What you're actually doing is you're paying attention to the emotion, which allows it to be there. And then it literally will act like a wave. It will peak, it will break, and it will recede. And then you'll feel okay without having avoided it or eaten it away or worked it away or exercised it away. You've just actually spent some time with it. So those we deny and that we suppress, they end up in our physiology. And we end up carrying them forever. Whereas if we just allowed ourselves to feel them, then we wouldn't have to take on any of that excess baggage. So that would be my second tip.
I love it.
And the third one is also very practical. It is to remember that food is life. So whatever you're eating is going to become part of who you are. Yeah. Now, listen, I like chocolate and ice cream as much as the next person, all right? But in all my experience of practice, you know, we're always either trying to feed ourselves or starve ourselves or punish ourselves. Our relationships with food is, very few people have a healthy relationship with food. And so an easy way to actually eat healthier food is to ask yourself, is what I'm about to eat or do, whether it's exercise, or is it nourishing or is it punishing? Because if you're feeling awful about yourself and you eat a quart of ice cream, you think that's comfort. First of all, you're distracting from the emotion. And secondly, is that actually nourishing? Probably not. Sorry, ice cream. Okay. It might taste good. And so if you ask yourself, is it nourishing or punishing? You may still eat the ice cream, but you won't eat the entire tub. You'll maybe have a scoop in which case that's okay, right? So nourishing or punishing, rather than is this food healthy or is it unhealthy? Because we've got so much programming about what is healthy and what is unhealthy, and today is healthy, and what is healthy today is actually poison tomorrow. Just ask yourself, is this nourishing or punishing? And do I want it, because the minute you do that, you become aware of feeding yourself optimally. And then what happens is over time, your health habits will change. And if you eat the ice cream, it's not so bad.
Yeah, so it's basically not just about the food type, it's also about the reasons for which we eat.
Exactly. So, are you really hungry? And if it's the only hunger that food can actually help you with is physical hunger. And that's a sensation that comes from your stomach, literally empty stomach. So, very often we eat when our stomachs are not empty. So then the question is, well, is it nourishing for me to eat right now? I always say, imagine you're your own toddler. Imagine the toddler came to you and said, Mom, I'm feeling really sad, or I'm really bored, or I'm really angry. And you were, well, just eat this. And the child went, no, but I'm actually full. You just eat this. And the child, no, but I actually don't want it. You can just eat it because you'll feel better. You wouldn't do that to a child, I'd like to think, but we do that to ourselves. So it just creates an awareness of how often we do these kind of things. And when we become more aware, then it becomes easier for us to nourish ourselves rather than all these rules that we have around food, because we all know they don't work in the long term. Yeah. They don't work. So those are my 3 points.
This was amazing. I'm in love with you. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Probably easiest to find me on Facebook. You can friend me at Loretta Ferrucci, or I have a group called Vitality Matters. It's a private Facebook group. There are about 1,500 people in there. It's very active, it's very engaged, and that's really where I post almost all of my free content. But if you friend me, I will obviously invite you to the group. So that's probably the easiest place to get me.
Beautiful. Any parting words, anything that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Self-love. I'm thinking about self-love because I'm doing a live on it tomorrow. Self-love is not like you don't wake up one morning and you're totally in love with yourself. It's like any other relationship you ever had. You might become a little bit infatuated, then you might become a little bit resentful. It's a process, all right? And you're not supposed to change the parts you think are awful, because how well does that work in a relationship with anyone else? You love that person despite the quirks and the faults. So it's a process, guys. Don't be too hard on yourselves. We always told to be kind. Be kind to yourself. Treat yourself like you were your own 2-year-old. That's what I would do.
Beautiful message. This was really fun. I'm so happy we did this. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely.
And thank you everyone for watching. And until next time, stay inspired, have fun, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.